Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Verl Workman here, CEO of Workman Success Systems, and I'm fired up today to share with you a brand new program, and we have the amazing Miss Sara Guldi to share it with us. You know, we have a lot of at Workman Success Systems, we have amazing coaches, and we have amazing clients. We have amazing people that are always willing to share. I call our secret sauce is the wisdom of our crowd, and we have all these amazing tools and resources. And one of the things that's really hard for a lot of our clients is putting together in a format that makes it logical. There's so much, it's overwhelming. Is that a good way to say it, Sara?
Yeah, absolutely. It's information overload.
So I asked master coach, team leader, super mom extraordinaire, Sara Guldi, to spend some time with us and just kind of take us through how we can onboard and how we can hire and train people so they can perform at a higher level. And there's and she's agreed to do that with us today. And so we're going to be talking about a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding process. And Sara's going to talk about how she thinks about people. We're not just putting numbers on the board. We're really dealing with people's lives. And the faster we can get them to success, the more likely it is they'll stay with us for life. Would you agree with that, Sara?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the culture we create, whether we do it on purpose or on accident.
It's so funny. I just wrote that in a slide deck called Everybody Has a Culture That's Either Accidentally or Intentionally Created. And it's up to you to choose what that's like. So, Sara, I'm going to be here with you. You can call on me for anything, but I want to turn the group over to you, and let's just rock this.
Awesome. So there was a couple thoughts that went into building the 30, 60, 90 program. And the biggest thing is we often hear from clients in this process is hiring is hard and I don't have time for it and I don't know what to teach them. And when I do hire them, they don't work out, and all these lists of reasons why it doesn't work. And what has occurred to me over and over in discussing this with clients is generally when a hire doesn't work, if we've followed the process, and I'll circle back to the process, but when we've followed the process to hire them and then they don't work out, it generally means that we as a team leader have failed them in some way. And so I wanted to take that failure opportunity out of the process as much as possible, because we're 90% of us, if not more of us, are in this business so we can change people's lives, including our own. And so we want the people we invest in, time, money, all of that, to succeed at a high level rather than just have a revolving door of warm bodies that can fog a mirror. Nobody I coach, nobody I work with is looking for warm bodies. They want people who are going to contribute to the deliberate culture of their business and help them succeed at a high level. So all that to say is I started looking at how can we change the way we look at the process, instead of saying, well, we just need to get them on and train them, to more of how can we ensure that we are deliberate about their success? What steps can we take and what metrics should there be, and what benchmarks are there? Because it's so important to pay attention to these things if we're going to be responsible for training and developing these people. I usually call the agents we hire are, it's usually these conversations with a team start with buyer's agents if they already have a client care coordinator. And the term I usually use for buyer's agents when we're bringing them on and training them is they're baby agents. And those of you that are parents might get that analogy better than others, pet, whatever. But when you were bringing up our agents and training them to do what we do, we can't operate on all these assumptions that they know what we know. They are babies. They are baby agents, and it's our job as their team leader to raise them up and teach them everything they need to know and bring them to a level of success. So there's a few things that we're going to give you guys today. I couldn't give you the whole program. There's just too much to it and it's too involved. And so I wanted to give you some of the things that are important foundational pieces of it. And that's the goals, because in figuring out how to do this, that was actually where I started, because that laid the foundation for what do we want someone to learn and in what time frame. And so we're going to have the goals laid out for you guys, the 30, 60, 90 for a buyer specialist and for a client care coordinator. And then also you can get a free business strategy session if you're not already a client. And that's well worth it. So if you guys just go to the URL, and I believe we give that at the end again too, and I'm sure at some point it'll be dropped in the chat. So that's how you'll get connected to all of that, those goodies at the end of this today. So buyer specialists, thinking about what do they need to know when we bring them on. And I'm actually going to digress real quick and just talk about the hiring process. And hiring should be slow. It's not that someone can walk into your office and say, well, I want to sell real estate. Great. We all do. You should be looking at core values, should be looking at personality assessments. We use DISC and we train our clients to use DISC, and it's a really phenomenal tool. It's not a box we put people in. And so it doesn't determine like, well, buyer's agents have to be a high I and no one else can be successful at it. But it's a tool for teaching you how to communicate with them. So you look at that, you check references. And so those are the steps that you take. There's a whole flow for that. I'm sure we've done whole webinars on it. And that's something that I'm sure they could dive into a little bit too on a strategy session, just to give you an idea of the process that we have for that. So again, back to the buyer's agent. Yeah.
If I can jump in, one of the things that I want to just reiterate is the speed to hire matters. And if you need to hire someone right now, you're probably going to make a bad hire. And so you have to be anticipating kind of a growth strategy of, hey, look, this is where our business is. We know we're going to scale our listings in the spring. We get busy spring. So we should be thinking about hiring 90 days before we actually need that person. Otherwise, I mean, how many times, Sarah, have you had your clients do an opportunity hire? They hire someone they know instead of someone that actually can do the job. And now they have to fire their,
they fire their friend.
Right. Wait, that was me. But I did that though, because I needed someone right now. And I knew someone that needed a job. So I hired someone that was a family member that I thought could do it without going through the hiring process. And it just creates all kinds of problems. We had somebody start at Workman Success Systems that we didn't go through the process of, hiring slow. We didn't do a skills test. And so some people just interview really, really well. And then on their first day of training, they're like, well, I don't know how to open Google. I'm like,
right.
Well, okay, I don't have the bandwidth to teach them basic technology skills. I need to teach them how to support our clients. And so hiring slow, I can't reiterate that any stronger. Slow down and hire A players.
And it needs to be an ongoing process too. Like you can't look at it as, okay, I need to look at my sales goal for this year. And okay, it looks like I'm going to need 4 buyer's agents to do that. So I'll just start looking for them in October. It should just always be happening. People are going to move on to different opportunities. People are going to, go out on their own. Change will happen. People will leave. You can't tie people to your business forever. And so it's an ongoing, always be recruiting kind of process. And I always tell my clients to think bigger. And so I have clients that really, to hit their goal, looking at, what a new agent might do in a year, they probably need 6 agents onboarded this year. And so they're looking for 15. Because we want to think bigger, and we want to, as much as we want people to have the year we anticipate for them out the gate, sometimes it takes someone a little bit longer to get going. And so as you look at your business strategically and you have goals that you're setting, you can't just say one buyer's agent is going to get me there if they're hitting my standard of production. You might need to say 3 and assume that one might not work out.
Well, especially with agents, we have a much lower churn rate with client care coordinators and assistants when we go through the process and hire slow. We don't have as much churn, but agents are just by nature going to be always looking for the greener grass,
right?
And the other opportunity. And so the only way you are able to keep them is by your culture and your systems, which ties us back into what you're doing here is your culture and systems.
Yeah, because what this process does is, we have agents who come onto a team, and we want to make sure that at the end of their training, they're actually ready to go succeed at a high level. And so that was what the thought process was. This is not how do we teach them how to open a lockbox, as much as that matters, and that's part of it. But it's how do we get them doing dollar productive activities as soon as possible and teach them to let go of that fear they may have about the phone or talking to people they don't know, and also talk to the people that they do know, because sometimes that's a bigger fear for anyone. And so we're creating habits over this 30, 60, 90 days. We're teaching them the foundational basics, and we're also getting them into production so they can actually sell houses and have a great year no matter when they start. And so like the first 30 days, I kind of looked at it and said, okay, we need to teach them to understand how the business works. So they shadow other agents in the field for 40 hours. If you're the team leader and they're your first hire, that's you that they're shadowing. If you have other buyer's agents on the team and maybe a listing partner, it depends on the size of your team. I would spread it out some so they can see how other agents operate while following your team processes and your team systems. You want them to practice writing contracts and amendments and addendums to be reviewed. And one of the things that one of my takeaways in figuring all this out was don't just say, go fill this out, give them scenarios. Okay, Bob and Sue are buying a house and they're going to use VA financing and they need to have a settlement date of da-da-da, and the earnest money is this. And so you give them all the terms and conditions and see if they can actually figure out how to write a good offer with it, and then help them and guide them and develop them in that. Because that's what's going to happen in real life. It's not going to be everyone has all the same things. They're going to have different weird scenarios pop up. Have them practice that. They should identify their top 50. That's 50 people that they know, like, want to know better, and will create a deep relationship with. That should lead to a high level of referrals. And it's not, hey, do you know anyone that wants to buy a house? It's actually relationship based. And that's a pretty huge proponent or part of what we teach, because your warm relationships are always going to yield more business than your cold ones. We get so caught up as new agents and, well, I need Zillow, I need this, I need this. That stuff's great, but warm relationships are going to teach you the foundations to then scale cold business as well. And then we also want to make sure they know how to do open houses in the areas that are allowed to have them. And as they start opening up more and more, they're going to be really important again as the world opens back up. And so it's an important skill for them to have, even if it's not something you've used in the last year. You might be sitting there saying, open house, gosh, we don't do that. You will again. It's going to be a thing again. And so we need to make sure that our agents have the level of mastery for it, and that we have a system for it in our business to do them at a high level, because it can be a real difference maker.
And during COVID, Sarah, all we do is change that to virtual.
Right. Yeah. We still did open houses. Right? Yeah. And so that's kind of the crawl, if you will. And so and then at 60 days, from day 30 to 60, we want to think about proficiency of everything we've gotten understanding of. And so you can see there, set 3 buyer consultations per week. Guess what that means they're doing as a trainee? They're picking up the phone and they're calling people. They're calling old leads, new leads. They're talking to their top 50. At this point, you are already having them do dollar productive activities and money-making activities. And really, you're starting that in the 30 days while they're still learning. And so it's a track that they're learning while they're doing, and you're there to make sure you lead them. And it doesn't matter how busy you are. As team leaders, I think the phrase that I use more often than anything is, you just need to embrace the suck. It's just going to take time right now to get these people trained and developed. And the benefit will be at the end of that, when you have agents that know how to do their job and that are producing, and they're having the level of success that they want to have, that then creates the level of success for you that you want to have. And so when you hire people, you owe it to them to spend the time that they need you to pour into them. And if that means you work a little bit more while you're onboarding and training someone, then that's what you do, because that's the commitment you made to be a team leader. That's a real sticking point for me. I'm kind of passionate about it. So,
me too. It makes me actually think about. I by the way, hi to many of our clients and coaches that are on the call. I see a lot of great faces on there. Just want to say hello, especially Ann Weaver, because Texas just removed all their government restrictions, and so they get to open up. So, congratulations to those of you in Texas, Michelle, that get to open up a little bit. One of the things I was thinking about when you were talking on the previous slide and on this one was that our job as leaders is business development and people development. And we often forget about the second part of that.
Yeah.
So we're really good about working our own top 50. We're really good about working our databases and buying leads, but the developing of our people to be excellent is where your succession planning comes in. And so one of the things I think about is, what are you building? Are you building something that gives you the ability to walk away and have your team continue to run it amazingly? And if you are, then you've got to think about succession planning. And so the thought that came to me, Sarah, was while you were talking, and is simply this. As a leader, you should never go with a client unless you have an apprentice with you. you should never meet one-on-one with a client. You should always have a buyer agent in training or a listing partner in training or an admin in training. Everything you do and you do well, there should always be someone there to document it, create the system around it.
Yeah.
And after you've done it 5 or 6 times, then you say, okay, I'm coming with you now, you present. And that's the speed to creating greatness. And you've got that laid out in here with the shadowing of agents and the things that you laid out in the plan, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah, because a lot of us are naturally good at real estate. Like we got into it and we just knew what to do. We knew how to have the conversations. And so it's weird. Like we almost get offended when our buyer's agents or our listing partner maybe don't have that natural talent, but it can be taught. It can be taught easily if we just take the time to develop it by doing things like deliberately role playing, by shadowing, by having systems and processes that they can follow. And so I've seen team leaders get mad. Like, I just don't understand why they don't get it. And I'm like, cool, did you teach them? And sometimes they don't like that question, but did you teach them? So this has them, holding open houses. Again, we're still training here. And they're setting buyer's agency agreements. And if they're doing everything that's laid out in the full detailed program, again, this is kind of the foundation of the whole program. If they're doing all the things laid out in the day-to-day, these goals are easy. And so for our clients, you guys have access to this. If you're not a client, think about how you create excellence using these foundational pieces. And then they can go at this point, day 30 to 60, they should be able to do a buyer consultation on their own, which means they've done a bunch with you and they know how to do it. And if you're not very good at buyer consultations, this is a great opportunity for you to figure out how to get good at it and what questions you should be asking, especially in the market we're seeing everywhere right now. Clients all over the United States and even in Canada are having these crazy markets. You need to be really good at figuring out what your buyer's looking for and what they're willing to do to get the property that they've identified as the property they want. So the buyer consultation matters more now than ever.
We got to teach them that it's okay to fail. They got to do a bunch of them and they got to suck at it and they have to fail a lot. And the more they fail, the faster they'll get good at it. We think that we don't want them to get the attempt because they might fail. Guess what? They will fail and it's okay. We got to be like, hey, let's fail a bunch so we can get that out of the way so we can get the wins.
Yeah, that failure is feedback is what I say all the time. And that's exactly what it is. So what if they fail? Yep, they're gonna. And you as the team leader have to be there to help them pick up the pieces to figure out what went wrong and what they can learn from it so it doesn't happen again. That's all the time we have team leaders say, it's easier if I just do it myself because I know there won't be a mistake. That's true, but then you'll never have a business that you can go take a month off of and go on vacation somewhere because everything is dependent on you being the piece in the process. So if you've heard yourself saying that, I want you to consider what you're creating when you sit there and say, it's easier if I do it myself. It's probably not. Okay, and so then the 90 days, we want to take a buyer's agent to mastery of the things that they've got understanding on, the things that they're proficient in. And things that like in understanding in proficiency, we do want to teach them how to show a house. That sounds weird. But again, remember they're baby agents and they don't know what we know. And so if they're brand new in real estate, how many of you remember back to when you took your licensing class? Did they teach you anything about showing a house? Nope. Did they teach you anything about filling in a contract document? Beyond saying you're not allowed to do anything besides fill in the blanks? Nope. They didn't teach any of that. They taught us how to do risk management and they taught us about understanding the law and finance and meets and bounds. And I have never used meets and bounds. I don't know, maybe some of you have. So they don't actually teach you how to become a real estate agent when you go get your license. And that's why this is so critical because we bring these agents on when we're at a point where we're doing enough business to support it. And we're like, wow, we need all this help. And then we just assume they know everything. So teach them how to open a lockbox, practice it, put them under pressure of showing a house, like have them, even if you have to use your office to do it, have them show you a house. These are all like the stuff that you're like, that's stupid. They don't need to learn how to do that. Yes, they do. They need to learn how to do all of it, especially if you take it to the next level in the way that you do it. And you want to have that same professionalism and culture in your team that from them. And not everyone operates in that method, but some people are like, no, we pride ourselves in everything we do is at the highest level of excellence. We know everything about the house that we're showing. Awesome. Then you need to teach your buyer's agents to operate from that place as well. So that is on you as the team leader to pour into and develop these agents and teach them everything. And that's why we've broken it down and systemized it and made it very checklistable, because otherwise it's there's stuff that will get forgotten, because while you're doing this, you're doing business and they're starting to do business too. So in 90 days, 60 to 90 days, it's time for them to like just run with it. And so they're doing lead generation at least 1 hour every day, and lead follow-up. They are not the same thing. So lead generation is looking for new business and new people to add to the database, and lead follow-up is making sure that we're following our ABCs of lead generation, and that we're following up with our B leads twice a month and our C leads once a month. And that we're creating that habit that it is our responsibility to follow up with our leads as buyer's agents and as agents, and that it's not personal if they don't respond, because that's where a lot of new agents get caught up. Well, they didn't call me back, they must not want to speak to me. Nope, that's not it at all. They're just not, they don't need you yet. And so you just keep calling them and be the person that they hear from all the time, unless they tell you to go away, of course. But yeah, we have to teach our buyer's agents it's not personal when a lead doesn't get back to us. They just don't need us yet. So at this point, they should be setting at least 3 buyer consults per week and signing at least three buyer agency agreements per month, holding open houses more if possible. If they're low on leads, then we want to bump the open houses up more, because that will teach them more. And then we're following the buyer processes and models 100%. They're scheduling appointments and writing contracts. So this is a producing agent from 30 to 90 days at a high level. We're still layering and training to make sure we're taking them to the next level. We're still developing our people. So that's kind of the path. And in all of these, we're going to go through client care coordinator next. And all of these, the thought process was, how do we teach them to understand the processes? How do they get good at the processes? And how do they master the processes? So it's understanding, proficiency, and mastery for all of them. So this is one of the documents that you guys will be getting. It again, it spells it out, what the goals are, what the metrics are. And again, if you're a client, you have this, and if you're not, well, you should be a client. But it'll give you the foundation to build this for yourself if need be. So client care coordinator is another critical hire in our business.
Before you jump into client care coordinator, go back one slide for me, please.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but when you put all this stuff out there, it makes me think. And I get all these great thoughts, and I appreciate how much work and effort has gone into building this out. For those of you that understand this, what she's got here is this is in our training center, in our coaching modules, this whole program is laid out in a step-by-step, page-by-page, what to do, how to do it. What she's giving you, which I think is really cool, I didn't even know we had this, I haven't seen this before today, is the breaking down of the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days in a checklist. And a lot of these activities, you can put your own content in there and go do. And so that's a very valuable giveaway to all of you that haven't seen this before. Like not even our coaching clients have seen this. This is brand new. This 30-60 checklist like this. So I just wanted to just say thank you for that, Sarah. This is really great. It's going to help me a lot. And the other thing is when you're going through the process of getting an agent to mastery quickly, our goal is to lead with revenue. When you hire a buyer's agent, I want them under contract in 30 days. That means that you've got to be doing dollar productive activities day one. So they should be calling people, following up with leads, learning the ABCs, working their top 50, all of those things that are inside this 30, 60, 90 plan are designed to get them to have money in their pocket. The number one reason for turnover is they're not making enough. And so they think they're going to go somewhere else because they think there's going to be a greater opportunity. So just write down lead with revenue. We lead with revenue, not expense. Let's teach them how to make money. And the faster we can get them to money, the longer they'll stay with us.
Yeah, it's tremendous to get agents producing right out the gate. And that's really one of the things that I wanted to consider in looking at this is they want to make money, like you said. And that's why we brought them on, is for them to make money. So why not make sure we do the things that teach them how to do that as quick as possible?
Yeah, excellent. And just by being on this call, we'll share this with you. So whoever's on this call with us today, we're going to share this 30-60-90 plan with you. And Sarah will put that up at the end of the slide deck. So just stay tuned.
And actually, thanks to your amazing staff for all that helped put this together, because I'm thinking about what, we always try to give something of value with these webinars, and in thinking about what to give, I was like, well, there's some things we can do and there's some things we can't do. And this is the foundation. And so let's give a bird's eye view of what this is, was really the thought process with it.
One of the fun things as we transition into client care, the number one reason people form teams is because they want to get their life back. And they hire someone and they hire the wrong person, and it causes more stress than they had before they had an assistant. The biggest trepidation, and I don't know if anybody can relate to this, I know some of you personally, so I know you can, but one of the biggest trepidations is taking the things that you do naturally so well and allowing somebody else to do that, hoping that your client has a positive experience. And so we are afraid of letting go because we don't want the relationship to be damaged because somebody wasn't as good as us. And so what we do is we micromanage and we hover over the people we hire, and we don't allow them to learn because we take anything difficult back off their plate. And just like parenting, you just have to realize that we need to allow our people to fail and to learn. We have to have close oversight. We don't want to lose transactions. We have to have high interaction with our clients. But I've never found an agent who hired, trained, and onboarded a client care coordinator whose life wasn't blessed for the long run.
Well,
so when you do it right, it works.
I think it's a story we tell ourselves that we do it best. And Anne just put that in the comments, and she's so right. Generally speaking, when we hire someone to do the things that we're so good at, they're better at it than us. And so it's really important to consider, like, we may think we're great at doing all of these things and juggling all these balls, but wouldn't it be better if we had laser focus on the things that are going to generate more business for us and delegate everything else? Yes, of course. So that's an excellent point. Is usually the people we hire are better than this. And one of the things I wish I'd thought about in this is I wish we had talked about client care coordinator first, because some of you who are just thinking about building teams, this actually needs to be the first hire. Because if you don't hire a client care coordinator before you bring on another agent to help you as a buyer's agent, then you're going to be the client care coordinator. So just something to consider for those of you thinking about building teams. This is your first hire as the client care coordinator. And
Sarah, you said that so much nicer than me. What I say is, if you don't have an assistant, you are one. And I can never take you to that place in your business where you're making 7 figures if you spend any of your day doing $20 an hour tasks.
Yeah.
And so knock it off. We can help you scale and you can grow, but there's going to be a cap on your opportunity until you learn how to have leverage. And leverage comes through people and technology. So sorry, you said it so nicely. I just want to, sometimes you just have to go, hey, if you don't have one, you are one. So decide what you want to be and let's do that, right? So if you want to be an assistant, this will be really good for you. You should onboard yourself correctly and do these tasks. Otherwise, delegate.
Yeah, take yourself through the 30, 60, 90 if you're going to be an assistant.
Right. And you'll realize all the stuff you don't have time to do and aren't doing right anyway, which is
right.
Anyways. Sorry.
That's okay. So built into the buyer's agent one and into this, one of the things that's so important in business and anything, I'm actually working on a degree right now. And I think this has been touched on in every business class I'm taking, is SMART goals. If you're not familiar with SMART goals and you haven't brought them into your business and into your personal life, I highly recommend it. So SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And I usually add an A to the A also as of now. And so when I'm writing out goals, and it's easiest usually to use health and fitness to give an example. Maybe you found that you put on a couple extra pounds because of COVID. And so you might say, okay, I want to lose 20 pounds to get back to my pre-quarantine weight. And so that's 20, that's specific. It's measurable. You can step on a scale and see where it is. It's attainable if you're right about the time frame. Like, you can't lose 20 pounds in a week. Maybe you could, but it probably means you've taken a limb off or something. And so what's the attainable time frame to do that in? Is it relevant to you? And then the time base, what time frame do you want to do it? So that's the easiest way for most people to grasp it. And when you add in the as of now, when I'm writing out that goal, I'll write it out as though it's the day I've achieved the goal. And so it is June 1st, and I have lost 20 pounds. And And so when you do your business planning think about at December 31st, 2021, what does your business look like? What people do you have in it? Be specific. What business volume have you done? What commission have you generated? All of that. And so if you haven't yet written business plan for this year, I challenge you to just write out some goals for that in that process, or using SMART goals like that. And if you have, double check on your goals to make sure you've written them out SMART. And the reason I bring this into this and bring this up is that's also a part of how you should be laying out these training for your people. So this was actually one of the foundational pieces. I keep saying foundational, but this is actually kind of where the 30, 60, 90 came from. So I was like, okay, within 90 days, we want people trained at a high level. We want them to be able to do their specific tasks that they need to do. So this is why SMART goals play into this. So understanding for a client care coordinator, they need to have a big picture understanding of your business. They need to know your core values for your team, your mission, vision, and your goals. If you don't know those yet, you should get really clear on them. So then you can train your people to them. And it matters. Like, don't just do any core values to get it done. Be really clear that they are actually important to you. And it's actually how you want to show up in your business. So that's big picture. One of the biggest things that they're going to learn in the first 30 days. And that applies for buyer's agent, listing partner, everything. Core values, mission, vision, and goals matter so much, because we hire and release by our core values, and everything we do within our business, we operate by our core values. You also want to take them through your business plan so they know where you're going. And that's also part of teaching them the mission and the goals and the vision. You need your people on your team to know where you're going, because they need to know where they're going to help you get. We had a former client that gave us a great example one time. He's based in Hawaii, and he talked about how everyone in his team, it was like they were in a life raft, and they were all paddling to get somewhere, to an island. But if they didn't point and say which island, because there's so many in Hawaii, it was such a great example from him. But if they didn't say which island, they wouldn't know where to go, and everyone would just be paddling aimlessly. And so you want to make sure that everyone in your lifeboat is paddling towards the same island. Understanding for your filing system. When I say transaction folders, by the way, here, we're not talking about Manila. Like, be digital, please. Use Dotloop, use DocuSign, Google Docs, whatever. But they should be managing how your transactions are organized and kept, and all the necessary documents for that and compliance. They should be practicing scripts with the team. Your client care coordinator should be part of your script practice. Absolutely. You want to include them in as much as you can, so they are part of the process and the team culture. And they should have ownership and help you grow the database, even in the first 30 days. And they should know and learn the computer systems and functions. So yes, they should know how to use Google Docs and Microsoft Office and all of that when they come to you. Will they know how to use your CRM? They might not, but they should learn it within the first 30 days, even if they're not mastery of it yet. Verl, I see you unmuted. Are you getting ready to say something?
Maybe. Well, just you brought up another couple of really good points, and that is that there tends to be, as your team grows, an us and them mentality. And there's the us, the salespeople, and the them, and they're the support people. And the salespeople are having contests and running games and high fives and doing spiffs. And the them are the ones that are working so hard to allow the agents to do what they do. And if we don't have a culture that is inclusive, where everybody gets to participate in the wins and the challenges, then there's separation, and it creates animosity in your culture. Some of the best run teams. I was on a call just this week, was a coaching week for me on one of my teams. They're running a March Madness, and they have this is a team of 20. So they've got their team broken into 4 groups of 5, and in every one of the group is a support staff person, but they're not the support person for the group. They are participating in the challenge. They're part of the success. They role play with them. They have daily success points they have to do. And so when I see that, I see a team that really understands the value of their support staff. Some people say you need to include your support staff in the culture. I believe that the support staff is the keeper of the culture. I think they're the ones that can actually kill or grow your team's culture. And if you do it correctly, your support staff is golden in the execution of your mission, vision, and more importantly, your core values.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so critical, like from go, teach them those things, have them on board with it, because I can't tell you, more than once a client has like come on the phone and, for our call and said, oh, by the way, my transaction coordinator said that this agent was really unhappy about XYZ. And so they have their ear to the ground more than you do too, especially as you get, higher up in developing the business and developing the people. And so they're so critical to your business. Yeah, you want to really not have the us versus them. That's great, Verl, to point that out. So 60 days proficiency. Your client care coordinator should be participating in your coaching calls. If you're a coaching client, they should be on every single call unless you have something to talk about them. But otherwise they should be present in all the calls. They should be a gatekeeper for the agents during lead generation time. So especially when you're working in an office environment, as a lot of us are going back to more and more, there are always agents who like to walk around the office with their coffee in hand and knock on doors and have conversations. And so your client care coordinator should be the one guarding the gates, like making sure, one, that they're staying committed to it, and also making sure that nobody else is interrupting them or you while you're doing that. It's the gotta minutes, or as you will, gotta minutes, or hey, what are you doing right now? Can we chat for a minute? Will just kill your team's productivity. So that's something that you want to give them charge of. Like, you can protect our time and you can hold us accountable to protecting our time. Whenever we do our annual conference leverage, which is phenomenal, I always give the client care coordinators and the admins permission. I empower them to take charge of their team leader. And they're always like, really? And yeah, your client care coordinator should have permission to treat you like a toddler, because you probably are one. And so this is the kind of person that you want to teach to say, no, this is not what you should be doing right now. You need to be focused on this, this, and this. And that's how critical they are to your business, is they should treat you like a toddler. So that gatekeeper one, I feel like is really critical. They should be looking at how to get more proficient in the business. What systems can we implement to do what we do better? What systems can we grow to do what we do better? And they should be taking charge of learning themselves, like attending trainings, making sure they're integrating the core values into everything that they do. They should understand your big picture of your real estate business. Again, that ties into the mission and the vision and being on board with the business plan, but also it ties into understanding the big picture of what the real estate business is. Like, what's the life cycle of a transaction? What is the life cycle of a listing? They should have real clarity on what that whole process is. And so again, that's on you to make sure they learn those things. And they should continue to work on developing operational excellence within your business. And so that ties back to the production systems and what have you. They should be looking at everything you do and say, okay, is there a better system for this? I don't generally recommend having a client care coordinator come in from day one and start changing systems. And sometimes you have a really good system that they just need to learn. But oftentimes when we make really good hires, they will look at it and say, that's really good that we're doing it this way. And what if we added in this? What if we added in this? And they continue to help you level things up. I generally say, unless you have no systems though, don't go there right away. Because sometimes, like, well, my old place, we did this, and so let's just do it all this way. That's a comforting thing for them, and it might not be meeting the metrics that you are looking for. But when we're in day, 60 to 90 now, or 30 to 60 now, they probably are starting to see gaps in your business, and you should absolutely take that feedback from them.
So a couple thoughts on this slide. One is that you say participate in coaching calls. I say participate in all critical calls.
Yeah.
And so anytime you're making promises, your assistant should be there to make sure you keep them. One of the things that my assistant does so well for me is whenever we're on calls, is she's there taking notes and setting follow-ups and to-dos. And the next time I meet with that person, I have in my calendar all of the notes from the last time I talked. And so she puts me in a position that allows me to focus on the meeting and not wondering what I said last time or what I promised and whether or not we did it. And
Right.
so a great assistant, and it's in the job description, their job is the care and feeding of the team leader. Their job is to make sure that you can do your job better. It's the execution of your vision. And it's really important. That's part of why as a coaching client, we want to be involved in the hiring process, because when you get to that point where you're ready to hire someone, your coach will have that hard conversation with someone that says, look, Michelle's busy and she wears 16 different hats, and your job is to take the load off all of those areas that can make her life better. It's not just transactional. It's the things that make life better so that we can create an opportunity for you. And if they understand that coming in and they know that that's their role, then they're much more likely to look for opportunities. One of the things that, there's not really great admin training out there. And so we built it in AMP. And so there's no one out there training on admin. So we built the admin training. When Irene, my executive assistant, got hired, I hired her a coach because I didn't know how to work with an executive assistant, and she needed to learn how to work with someone like me who's a crack, who runs his life on a high level of caffeine and attention deficit. And how do we keep this? It's Verl wrangling, and that coaching made a big difference in the way she runs the business on my behalf. So I just think that, when you think about who and how you're hiring, think about how do we develop, how do we train, and what Sara has laid out with this 30-60-90 is just, it's just methodical and thoughtful, designed to get the load off of you and onto someone who wakes up every day and thinks how they can support you. And when you know someone cares about you that much, that they're willing to do whatever you need in your business or your life, you have to take good care of them. You have to recognize what they do for you, and you have to create an environment for them to live well as also. It's not just about you having a good life.
Right. Yeah. It's about a good life for everyone. I read a quote somewhere once, and I don't remember who to attribute it to right now. But it was talking about hiring an assistant, and said, I'm going to basically treat your office like a garbage can. I'm going to throw everything at you, and it's your job to make sure it's all done. There's an important distinction there. It's not necessarily their job to do everything. There might be times where they're like, okay, we're going to use a VA for this, or we're going to use this tool for this. But as an admin, their job is to make sure everything gets done that you throw at them. And then also their job is to say, hey, I can't take any more that you're throwing at me. You've thrown too much at me. So then it's, as your business grows and scales, that will happen. It will start to, come to a point where they can't necessarily do the transaction coordination on top of the listing coordination, on top of managing you. And so then we start to add in other support pieces, and they need to be empowered to say, hey, we've reached this point. And you need to pay attention when they do say that, or when you see signs of that. So it's they're the backbone of your business. I try not to use the word assistant very much, because I don't think they're just there to be that lesser position that I think is tied to that name. They really are a client care coordinator, and they're also herding cats or training toddlers, as the case may be. And so they really need to feel empowered in their role to do that. And that is, as the team leader, on you to make sure you're teaching them that. And then by 60 to 90 days, we want to make sure that they are managing your production systems. They're making sure your whole transaction coordination process is flowing smoothly. Your listing process is flowing smoothly, and they have ownership of all of those processes. They're managing all your incoming, outgoing phone calls. They might be checking your email if they're at that level for you. They continue to develop themselves personally and professionally. Where can they continue to learn? Where can they get better at what they do? We've seen people who are hired to be a client care coordinator grow into be a director of operations within these companies and teams that we coach. And so it is on that client care coordinator to make sure that they're growing at the same rate that they need to, if that growth path exists within your company or is potential within your company. They should be taking ownership of all the back office systems. So it's not a question of what do we use for this? They know everything that you guys use to work a process, and they have ownership of it all. And they know how to take all the client care clients from contract to close, and they have ownership in the team. And I don't mean financial ownership, but they really feel like they own what happens in the team and what happens in the future growth of the business. So that's the mastery level for a client care coordinator. And again, this will be a handout that you get with what the goals are. So that's kind of the quick run through of what the goals are. And I see we have had some questions pop up.
Let me ask you the questions, Sara.
Yeah.
And then I'll let you answer them. So go back to the 30-60. Go back a slide. Go up a slide. Everybody take a pic. Take a picture of the download slide so you have it.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. I'm like I said, too much caffeine. So everybody take a picture of this so you have the screen, so you know where to get the downloads of the 30-60-90 checklist. And obviously, if you don't have a coach and you think this would be helpful to have somebody like Sara helping you with your business, make sure you reach out for a strategy session, because we'd love to just sit down and talk to you and see where you are in your business, and we can help you make some of those hard decisions on when the right time to hire is, how much do you pay someone, all of that. So Sara, one of the first questions that came up was, let's see, is the client care coordinator the same position as a general admin?
Yes, initially that's absolutely what they would be. So they're handling pretty much everything for you the first time you bring that person on. They're doing your listing coordination, contract to close, answering phones, emails, all of that. So they're an all-in-one, the first admin that you hire.
And what the titles matter to people. Like, I don't know of anybody that in there, what do you want to be when you grow up?
An
Wrote the
admin.
word admin. Like, I want to be an admin. Like, and so I have a tendency to not like to use that one. Even executive assistant, I don't even really like that. I mean, so when I think of what Irene does for me, she's way more than an executive assistant. She's the executor of the vision. She's the one that makes it all happen. So I don't know how to title that correctly, but client care coordinator to me means that they have everything and anything to do with making our clients happy and making sure they're cared for. And as a team leader, your clients are the agents on your team and the people that help buy and sell real estate with. Does that make sense? And so we have to treat our agents the way we want them to treat our clients. And if we don't, you'll have big churn. Another question is, he says that's not how you spell coordinator. I like client care coordinator. I like concierge service. I mean, there's lots of names you can title and call them. Let's talk about compensation. How do you pay a client care coordinator? And this is a big question.
There's a lot of different models for it. Honestly, what we generally start with is a fixed amount every week. It depends on if they're licensed, if they're not licensed, whether or not you can add any sort of bonusing on that based on per transaction, what have you. But that is generally we start at, what is in your area, a decent living, for lack of a better word. Like, we don't want to pay these people $7 an hour to do things for us. But at the same time, a client care coordinator in Chicago might make more than a client care coordinator in Kentucky. And so it's really based on your area, but it's generally, I want to say what we generally suggest starting at is, and I don't have it memorized, I don't know that I should, but $2,100 a month, I think. But I don't remember for sure.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, today where the job market's so interesting, it's, we found that we're hiring, you're paying more money because the unemployment was so low. And so, but now there's been kind of a lot of people that come back into the job market. We're finding a higher quality person coming into the market as well. So there's good things that are out there. So there's not just an answer that says pay this much. What I look at is I say, okay, if you're having someone do transaction management for you, the value of that is somewhere between $250 and $300 a transaction. And when the outsourced transaction management equals what you could pay somebody full time, they can do a lot more than transaction management for you. And so when you look at that as kind of a benchmark, it helps you determine whether or not it makes sense financially. The other thing to justify, and this is a big one, to justify the hiring of a client care coordinator is that if they are going to save you 20 hours a week, you have to promise to give me 10 of it back in prospecting. And then you'll never, ever, ever worry about whether or not your client care coordinator made you money.
Right.
Right.
They're going to make you money because the focus that you're going to then have on your dollar productive activities. And generally when people are hiring that first one, they're like, well, I can't pay them $30,000 a year. Great. Pay them, X dollars a month, and you don't have to pay the full year up front. I guarantee you it will pay for itself by having them in that position. And just to add what you said, if they're talent, if they're going to really, really help you grow your business, it's worth compensating for that. And so I would even pay maybe a little bit more than what your market is. If I have someone that I'm just like, wow, they're phenomenal, I'm going to bring them on.
I'm so glad you said that. If you err on the side of paying at the high end of the scale, and so if the range is 24 to 36 and you pay 35, you're going to have much higher quality people that you're able to hire. And then if you try and do it for at least possible, skilled positions are just that, they're skilled. And if they have the
Yeah.
skill and the right profile. So somebody asked what the desk is, what the desk is for a client care coordinator. Sara, I'll let you address that.
I would look for two things in the disc for client care coordinator. Generally, you do want more C and more S than you might find in your typical buyer's agents. You know, that's kind of the line on a disc is a 50. And so you generally want them to have those traits above that line. And I'll circle back to what I said. It's not a box that we put people in, but you do generally want those traits to be above the line and probably their most dominant traits. The other thing you want to consider is what are your talents? And so if you're a very high C, high S, you certainly want to make sure that someone has the high enough to match what you have, or you're just going to be frustrated with them all the time because they don't have the high attention to detail that you have. Or if you have no C or no S, that also matters too. So those are the primary traits that I look for in a client care coordinator, but you might also consider how much eye do they have? How much are they going to be interacting with the public? And are they going to be comfortable with that? Are they going to have enough D to keep you driven? So there's no, they must be this. But those are factors to consider. How do they complement your disc profile in the hiring of it?
It was interesting. I had a call earlier today with the CEO of Remax, and he was telling me that the desk and all these profiles are very valuable in identifying kind of a benchmark, but he says there's not enough people are checking and testing for emotional intelligence and what's their ability to work in a stressful environment, or how will they do working with a crazy wound up entrepreneur. You know, the emotional intelligence is also equal. And there's questions you can ask during your interview process that will help identify those things. We have a whole process for entering with, there's a great book by Patrick Lencioni called The Ideal Team Player. And he talks about hiring to hungry, humble, and smart. And that's one of the ones that I really use. James asked a great question, Sara. And it'll be interesting to see if you and I are thinking the same thing on this. He says, I have a client care coordinator who's now getting overwhelmed with how many listings we have since we're following the Workman way and getting listings signed. She's handling it, but her track is to eventually become a buyer's agent. There's not enough hours of the day to get her all the client care work done, but also train her in buyer agent mastery, even have her come on my appointments. What do I do?
Well, I'm curious as to why she was hired to be a client care coordinator and is growing into a buyer's agent role. That's the first question. Generally speaking, when I have people who are hiring someone, they're like, but they eventually want to be an agent. I'm like, great, let's bring them on and train them to be an agent. Because if you hire them to do one thing and then move them into another thing, you're just creating more work for yourself. And so I would look at hiring a client care coordinator at this point and go ahead and move her into the buyer's agent role, because otherwise you're just duplicating efforts for yourself. So no, you didn't stump me, James. I was just trying to think of a nice way to say it. I don't think she should be your client care coordinator if she wants to be a buyer's agent, and she should help you, as someone said, identify your replacement. And so let's get her moved into that buyer's agent role and train her in that role and get a listing coordinator on board is my answer.
Here's the truth. That anybody that's around salespeople, it's hard not to catch the contagious attitude of making commissions. And you don't think that everybody that works for you is doing the math in their heads? I guarantee you they are. It doesn't matter what business you're in. It doesn't mean everybody wants to be a salesperson, but if she has I think a lot of our greatest salespeople come from a supporting role because they learn how to do the business better. And then what we want to do is for our people, I want to do what's best for them. You know, moving a really good client care coordinator, a buyer's agent, is not best for you because you have someone that's doing a great job. And so it's stressful. And so to really have a good conversation and figure out what it is that she wants a year or two from now, and then create a transition plan that isn't immediate. Usually someone that's in a client care role can't afford to be on straight commission, and speed to dollars takes a while. So create a transition plan that includes documenting all the systems, making sure the operations manual is working, hire and mentoring the replacement. And then at some point she's 50-50. The other thing you could do is with client care, and I don't know how many units you're doing, James, if I looked at Workbench and I saw the amount of volume you're doing, when you get around 100 units, I start separating the role. And so I have client care turn into transaction manager, and then I hire somebody else that has a little bit different a skill set for marketing and for my social media and for creating my ads and building my packets and the director of the client interaction. And so I start separating the role between transaction management and marketing and other things. And so that might be something you look at as well. Sarah?
I would also look at why she wants to be a buyer's agent. Like Verl said, it's really easy for people to see the commission and be like, well, that's the kind of money I want to make. And maybe she doesn't actually want to be a buyer's agent, but maybe she's wondering what the growth path is for her to make that kind of income, which does exist in a high producing team in a admin, client care coordinator, operations role. The opportunity is there to make that kind of money. And so I would dig into why the transition is also part of what I would do.
I love this question from Claire. Who do you hire first, buyer's agent or client care coordinator?
You should hire a client care coordinator day one of real estate. That's always first. As Verl said earlier, if you don't have an assistant, you are an assistant.
And so Claire, let's say that instead of saying you need to hire a client care coordinator, let's say you have to create leverage in the assistant role. Whether you use somebody else's client care coordinator, do your transaction processing, you hire a virtual assistant to help you. The concept is anytime you're doing those $20, $25 an hour tasks, you have got to get them off your plate. So where they go may not be a full-time client care coordinator because you may be starting out, but eventually I'd say that's absolutely your first hire. I mean, Sarah's 100% accurate. Get that off your desk and focus on business development and people development. Everything else is fake work.
When you make $400 an hour as a real estate agent or team leader, and you choose to do $20 an hour task, you have to consider what you're costing yourself to in that time. It's not just that you're doing work that's not dollar productive for you. You're actually costing yourself that $380 an hour by choosing to work a loop and dot loop as opposed to having a transaction coordinator handle that. So it gets pretty pricey to choose to do things that aren't productive for you.
You know, it's funny, Sarah, you said this and I should have picked up on it and added commentary to it because you have all these pearls of wisdom. You know, as agents, we are wired a certain way. We love the game. We love the negotiation. We love houses. We love going out there and doing the business. We do the administrative tasks and we do the showing of homes because we don't have anyone else to do it. But it's not our happy place. It's not our natural gift. And so by working in it, by taking someone who is naturally gifted with people that wants to be out there making a difference in the world and put them behind a desk and say, you've got to work on transaction management, it causes you as an entrepreneur to work at a much higher level of anxiety and stress because it's outside of your natural comfort zone. And so we want you to operate at a lower level of stress and a higher level of speed. And the only way to do that is to take the things out that aren't comfortable for you and delegate them. Nicole, your comment is the biggest mistake I made was hiring a bunch of buyer's agents for having a client care coordinator. Thank you for saying that. You're good at hunting. You know how to make business happen. But man, if you don't have someone to handle it, like I used to say that best problem I can ever have is sell more than my team can handle. Well, that's not true. That is not a good problem to have. Make sure your team can handle it, then scale.
Right.
Spoken like a true salesman, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so Claire, I think Nicole answered that perfectly for you.
Okay.
Okay, David in his question says, after hiring a client care coordinator, how long before hiring a buyer's agent to help those dollars produced by the IR agent help pay for the coordinator? So we have a system for everything. And so at Workman, we have a system, and the system is based on numbers. And so we don't hire emotionally. We hire based on transaction count, profitability, number of listings that we have. Sarah, describe our formula for hiring buyer's agents.
Well, I was going to say hire them right away, but generally a buyer's agent can, like when you're looking at what you're focusing your time on, especially the first buyer's agent, I know there's a formula for how we bring on more buyer's agents, but I think the first one you should consider, are you spending more time with buyers or are you spending more time going after listings? And if you're spending more time with buyers than you are listings, then you're doing the wrong things in your business. Listings are the lifeblood of our business. So that first buyer's agent is almost immediately after you have a good quality client care coordinator. After that, it's generally a buyer's agent can handle about 25 leads. at a time active. And so they're working those leads. And so that's how you know to add more leads or more buyer's agents, is following that formula. But the first one, I would say, once you have an admin that knows what they're doing, and can operate at a good level in your business, then you should be saying, okay, now how can I get laser focused on just doing listings and hand off all the buyers?
Especially in this market, like buyers are just brutal. And it's not because you're not good as an agent. It's just because it's hard to get the inventory. And so, like, if you're spending hours and hours and hours with a buyer, I'm just going to challenge you, get good buyer's agents, and they get better at it, because that's all they do is eat, drink, and sleep working with the buyers. They know the inventory. They have pockets. They have ideas of what things you're going to sell for, what we have to do to get it done. And I love my buyer's agents. The more you focus in an area of specialty in your business, the better you get at it. And so as a team leader, as a leader, I'm going to suggest that you focus on business development and people development. And that business development comes in the role of generating listings, because listings feed the beast. If you'll go after listings, you'll have all the leads you need for your buyer's agents, because you're doing open houses, you're marketing around the homes, you're doing all of the things that generate that 6 to 8 leads per month per listing. Even in a fast selling market, we're still generating lots of leads. So just follow the formula. If you don't know the formulas, reach out to one of our business consultants, get a strategy session. We'll sit down with you. We'll see where you are, and we'll just guide you through the process. You don't have to do this by yourself. One of the things I hope that you realize when you come on this webinar today is that Workman Success #1 is willing to share. We want to share with everybody whatever we can to help you be successful. And #2, we have a very, very powerful group of coaches and clients who want to help you succeed, and they're willing to give to you and to help you grow. So reach out and say, hey, give me some help. Put me in, coach. I need a coach. It's okay to ask for that. And let's help them, right, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, everybody, I want to say thank you for joining us today. This has been a great, it went fast. Talking about the 30, 60, 90 onboarding and hiring process for these positions. The time went really fast. I appreciate y'all being here. Go out and find someone to serve today and make a difference in the world. And I promise it'll come back in multiples to your life and your business. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah.